Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm Marie Kato. Hungary's Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó attended the Moscow Energy Forum this week, rejecting EU and US pressure to end Russian energy imports. Hungary remains heavily reliant on Russian oil. Another issue to keep in mind is that according to Ipsos' latest global opinion survey for the month of June, 82% of citizens say the country is heading in the wrong direction. With elections next spring, these tensions could really challenge Prime Minister Viktor Orbán's 16-year rule. To help us unpack these complex dynamics, I'm joined by Raffaella Tenconi, economist at Wood & Company. Hello, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
So, recent data shows that production is falling across almost all sectors in Hungary. How serious is the economic downturn, and are we already seeing signs of recession?
I think that at this stage you can say that the economy continues to stagnate. There are two important elements of this. The first one related to the industrial production trend that you mentioned. Hungary is incredibly exposed to the auto sector, and because the auto sector in Europe in general is going through a dramatic restructuring that will last many years, that it's certainly undermining Hungary's production performance, especially this year. Nonetheless, I have to underscore that Hungary is underperforming relative to its peers. You know, Czech Republic, Poland, even Romania, they all have large auto sectors, and yet they seem to be doing better than Hungary. Second element is that the investment momentum in Hungary has really stalled. It's practically entering the third year of contraction. And this is perhaps where you can see most clearly the impact of the Orbán legacy, so to speak. Because in the first part of the Orbán reform, actually, Hungary did very well, managed to reaccelerate investment. And you could see the economy thriving in terms of productive capacity. Whereas at this stage, what we can see is that although foreign direct investment is still coming in, and there is an expansion, again, of production in autos, in reality, that does not seem to be sufficient to keep investment at the aggregate level. So that includes also those that are already in Hungary on an expansion path. And it's signaling an underlying malaise and distrust with the economic outlook.
So what has been putting off investment in Hungary right now? What are the main reasons for the deterrence of investment?
Well, that is a really good question. I think certainly investment cycles, first of all, are driven by expected demand. So the economy is already highly invested in autos. Capacity is actually going to rise. And because there is no expectation that the auto sector is really going to boom anytime soon, that certainly is a constraint. But at the same time, there's also a major erosion of productivity and competitiveness. You can see it in the gap between wages and productivity, which is one of the worst in the region. You can see it in the worsening of the investment climate. And I would say lately it's also an issue of the currency. The currency has been doing better than its underlying trend. It's been appreciating actually quite rapidly lately because the central bank has been trying to address the inflation problem. But of course, a strong currency undermines exports further. So it's a mixture of profound difficult economic problems that the administration does not really seem to be willing to fully address.
And how do you see this affecting the campaign that is coming up? We have the elections that are coming up in spring. How will this impact voters?
Well, so what we can see is that voters are discontent with the economic situation. Inflation has eroded purchasing power significantly. I mean, I have to underscore, though, that Hungarian households are still significantly better off than what they were before Orbán took over. So it's not necessarily that people are poorer, but the inflation is continuously actually creating a challenge and it's becoming pervasive. So this is one of the key issues. Second issue is there are lingering reports that the labor market, although it is tight, there are continuing rumors that in the auto sectors there are imminent layoffs, and especially foreign direct investment related to Chinese owners tend to try to switch the labor force from locals to imported labor. So this is adding challenges, most importantly, because Hungary has been on a colliding trend on Brussels for many years now, and therefore absorption of EU funds is heavily impaired. Investment infrastructure, particularly in the agricultural sector, which is being increasingly hit by climate change, is suffering. So I think that is another element of discontent.
I just want to turn to the Moscow Energy Forum. We had Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó saying that Hungary will not bow to external pressure and will not give up Russian oil and gas. He also said that we have never been let down by Russian deliveries. They've always arrived, contracts were always respected. And he says, why should we cut this relationship? How sustainable is this position?
Well, I think it's very clear that the Hungarian government wants to have its own special relationship with Russia. There is a genuine basis for their statement. You know, they are more reliant on Russian gas than other countries, although by now, if they really wanted to diversify to a much greater extent, they could. They just choose not to. So how sustainable is this position? It's very sustainable because politically that's where they want to go, but increasingly it's costing them through other means. Now, as you probably know, there will be a new EU budget approved in the next 2 years, where most of Eastern Europe, including Hungary, could potentially tap into meaningful EU funds for investment, convergence, R&D, and so on and so forth. All of these funds are related in one way or another to agreeing with the key principles of the EU and the key policies of the EU. So Hungary could continue to de facto have a special relationship with Russia, but you should expect that it will cost in terms of support from the EU.
Donald Trump always emphasizes and praises Viktor Orbán, but he recently said that he thinks that he will be able to persuade Viktor Orbán to drop that Russian oil. Do you think that that is doable?
I think after the general election is doable. Before, I doubt it.
So you think that Trump has the power to persuade Viktor Orbán to drop Russian oil?
Yes, I think that the relationship is strong enough that that is a viable negotiation. But the issue of the relationship with Russia, Hungary's support for Ukraine, which is linked to this issue, it's a key part of the campaign. And so I don't think the Prime Minister is going to change these themes before people have voted. I also want to underscore that although what I mentioned to you in terms of concerns about the broad population on the effectiveness of the government, nonetheless coexists with still a very robust support for the ruling party. And it's not a given that the next election will deliver a change of government. It may well be the current government remains in place. So the stakes are very high. I think the election is very tight.
But according to recent polls, over 80% of Hungarians believe that the country is heading in the wrong direction. Do you think that this content is connected to the economic situation, or do you think that this is more to do with the social issues connected to the way Viktor Orbán is taking the country?
I think they're all in the sense that, I mean, from an economic perspective, perhaps you could say that, yes, lately the situation has not improved as much as previous years. But as I stressed before, most Hungarians, in terms of wealth and incomes, are significantly better off than at the beginning of his term. So there is an underlying trust that he can manage the economy, even though he's not managing it as well as before. And of course, there's growing discontent because the efficiency of the judicial system leaves much to be desired. The business atmosphere for all companies, not just some sectors, is heavily impaired. And freedom of expression is not completely free.
Okay. Raffaella, we're going to leave it right there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Raffaella Tenconi, economist at Wood & Company. Thanks so much for being with us. And that leaves us at the end of this edition of World Talks. Thanks so much for being with us, and we shall see you very soon on TVP World. Goodbye.